All right, so today let's dive into some token analysis. We'll take a look at a whole slew of these with one of our traders. I think you guys are going to love it. My name is Paul Barrow. Welcome back into Tech Path. Let's get into a couple of topics today. I want to first kind of lead off with Bitcoin. Some things that have been happening in the market. A lot of people looking at Bitcoin and Ethereum, the way they're kind of counterbalancing each other and how are they playing out. So I wanted to bring in, of course, Mr. Tim Warren coming in from Investing Bros. Great to have you, Tim.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me, Paul.
Hey, let's take a look at a couple of things. Jason Pisano, he's coming in saying, hey, consolidation phase now before we might see a top here. He's also kind of extending this out. First, he bases this off a little bit on Google Trend Search. We showed this a little bit earlier this week. Very low for crypto right now, but we are starting to see some times. He's thinking that this still could be anywhere between 12 to 18 months out, maybe. What are your thoughts in terms of timeline here on Bitcoin right now?
12 to 18 months in terms of before the top of the bull market, or?
Yeah, top of the bull market. Yep.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That stays intact with the 4-year cycle. I've been preparing the Investing Bros audience for more than likely a lot of tops to come into play between August to October area. You kind of have a window of 2.5 months that could be that top. So I think at the moment that puts us 14 to 15 months, right there in the middle of that 12 to 18. But again, I also know there's a lot of scenarios that could play out. I'm sure you know this too, Paul, have the same opinion. There are things that could play out that could cause a super cycle where we don't have the 4-year cycle. Price continues to climb up after, but there's so many ifs and thens in that statement. For now, it's the most likely outcome is the 4-year cycle stays intact and we get some form of a top and then a more dramatic pullback sometime late summer, early fall.
Yeah, I think the one area that we're watching the most is obviously the political landscape, because if we do see a shift in administration and there's a whole new framework of how maybe crypto is being looked at, we could see innovation start to really kick up, which obviously would address it, especially with 2 ETFs potentially going to be on the ground by that time with an ETH ETF and so on. I want to go to a clip real quick because this was an interesting clip around retail investors, because retail has notoriously been late to the party. May not necessarily be the case now. Let me play this clip for you.
Have you sensed a difference from where the retail investor is sort of respected now?
Absolutely, and I think a lot of that has to do with time, right? Our bear markets are shorter, our bull markets are pretty aggressive. They've seen the stock market fall during the pandemic and then climb right back when the Fed floored interest rates. A lot of these people went through that in 2008, 2009. They're used to that sort of lack of moral hazard being there, so they want to stay invested, and they've been rewarded for doing it. They worry about concentration, they worry about inflation, they worry about all these things. The walls of worry are very high, but if you just kept worrying and didn't invest, you've missed one of the greatest bull markets in generations. So I don't think they want to miss out, and they've seen this before a few times. So even if they're a little bit trepid and a little bit worried about things that could happen, they don't want to be not invested.
So the point being right there is that maybe this cycle, the retail investor, very optimistic going into especially this back half. And if we do get, a political play that could be positive for crypto, could this be enough to move the markets, back to your point, into a super cycle? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think something to keep in mind is everything up until this bull market has been mostly retail investors and then smart individuals who saw the vision long term and said, you know what, we're gonna be a part of it. But in the bull market of 2021, I actually made a video yesterday talking about this. That was institutions were in crypto. People act like this is the first time they get in. They were in crypto. They were suppressing it. They were flooding it. They were trying to drive people away from it. But this cycle, they're the ones adding to it. And so where the 4-year cycle came into play based off of smart individuals and retail investors knowing the best times to get in and out, or the retail investors really not knowing the best times, now institutions coming in, it changes the ball game because they are looking for those long-term pullbacks. I've told people, while I still believe we will see bear markets and bull markets, I think the days of Bitcoin dropping 70 to 90% are done. I would actually not be surprised if the severity of the bear market for Bitcoin only pulls back 50%. And that's still going to be pretty big for a lot of institutional investors who are used to stocks and the S&P 500 and so on and so forth. But the more mature we get and the more adoption that institution gets in, the less volatility, which means both less explosive moves to the upside, but also less dramatic pullbacks as well.
Yeah, that's a big statement because if you think and believe that which a lot of people are kind of pointing to, whether you think about Tom Lee or you look at some other analysts right now pointing to like 150 to 200 potentially as a high. I mean, still, if you saw a 50% pullback, that would still almost be 2x from where we are today, trading at around 62, 63. So a lot of factors playing into that. I want to jump to ETH because ETH is one that we've been watching quite a bit here. And when you look at this trading view chart here, this is the diverging paths of long-term holders on Ethereum. And the last time that we really saw this occur, which is what we're seeing occur right now, let me kind of maybe zoom in on this a little bit for you guys. You can kind of see this long-term hold. This is the ETH in the light blue, dark blue there, Bitcoin. But the last time we really saw this was all the way back here in 2017, where ETH started outperforming Bitcoin. So our question in our research team has been, I want to get your opinion, is Ethereum maybe in a position right now, you know, from a position of outperforming an asset, is it now in a position where it's outperforming Bitcoin? What are your thoughts?
Oh, good question. Is it outperforming Bitcoin? I mean, what's the definition of outperforming Bitcoin? If we're just talking about full-blown market cap growing,
well, I'm talking about investment.
Yeah,
I put $100,000 or $10,000 or $1,000. What's going to give me a better gain?
Yeah, Ethereum. I don't even think it's close. I think let's say investors were to decide right now they have $100,000 to choose one of them. $100,000 into Bitcoin to the top of the bull market in 2025. We're probably talking about 100 turning into somewhere between 200 to 300,000 would be my best guess. Versus Ethereum, I think low case 500,000, better case somewhere closer to 600 to 800. I think there's a 5 to 8 potential X left for Ethereum. So more than double the gains that you'd get in Bitcoin.
When you look at that, if you look at the chart, if you would bring your ETH chart up, Tim, and let's say go to the monthly, and I want to kind of look at the performance of ETH over time. Does it look like it is in a position where it essentially has, if you kind of compare this to Bitcoin, does that not look like a high performance chart? I mean, even with the drawdown, even though the drawdown was considerably less than what we saw in almost everything, is ETH maybe the long-term asset play here?
Yeah, I think in terms of if you want to make more money long-term, I think Ethereum, at least for the next 10 to 15 years, I would not be surprised to see Ethereum constantly have better bull markets than Bitcoin. But we got to remember, it's still dramatically behind in terms of market cap. So if anyone's wondering about the flippening, the grand flippening, we're never going to see Ethereum token, one token, be more valuable than one Bitcoin token. Just the simple tokenomics of it all. But market cap, I think there will be a day and age where we might flirt with the concept of Ethereum flipping the Bitcoin market cap. But long term, I think Bitcoin's the grander play. But again, for investment purposes, this is a very, very bullish chart. One of the things I've said earlier, I think Ethereum probably is getting between 18 to 20K from its current position right now. I think there's a chance right now at 3,500, there's a chance Ethereum drops to 32 before the bulls come back in full force. But we're talking about still big, big gains just for this bull market. And this is, I hope people understand, this is the beginning stages of institutional adoption. It will get even more grandiose by the next 5 years. We talk about 2030. Don't be surprised if we are discussing potentially a 50, 60, I think 70 is a little out of the equation, but maybe $70,000 Ethereum. And we're talking about trillions and trillions of dollars coming in the market cap. Again, for investing purposes long term, am I going to make more money in Bitcoin or Ethereum? Easy Ethereum. I still believe in diversification, but I don't think there's much of debate to be had about who's going to make more money, Ethereum holders or Bitcoin holders.
All right, so I'm gonna kind of back that up just so we can kind of get some additional analysts to look at this. If you look at Matt Hogan, he comes in and hits on it, very similar to what you're saying there. ETH tailwinds, significant new demand. This obviously with the ETF, constrained supply, limit to zero net issuance, improved regulatory clarity. That will be the case. Radically improved throughput. Obviously, we know and we've seen significant improvement on UX. Thank you. I agree. Base, institutional adoption, cycle timing, macro conditions, Fed rate cuts, election, possibly huge catalyst. So all these are things very, very bullish for a good setup for ETH, even if ETH does pull back down to 32. My question is, do you think ETH can pull back to, in a bearish case, under 3K? Or are you right now holding that 32 line?
It can. And I'll go back and I'll take a look, show you guys what I'm seeing on the charts. For now, 32 is my level of saying, hey, this is a very reasonable and well-explained pullback. If you start to pull up different indicators here, I'm actually not even going to find it on my Luxago indicator. We have some strong support here on 3,300. There is a level down here, a very key order block in play at 2,900. But one of my big factors, let's see here, maybe it was the weekly chart, and there's a different chart as well. Yeah, we have a stop loss here at 3,200. We also, if we go to high block capital and I go to Ethereum instead of Bitcoin here, this is a liquidations chart, meaning for anyone who's trading and looking to try to get rid of a lot of big positions, they're going to be looking at this chart and see a lot of liquidity sitting right here at 3,000. You never see, if I were to go back over the charts and let's just kind of put a line right here at 3,000, you never see the price go right to that exact level of high liquidity.
Right.
You would always see it go below. There was more. I think the other one is if I go to the daily chart, I think the 32 is coming from the daily chart of liquidations, unless things update. There we go. Great. Fat amount of liquidity down here at 32. So that's a very easy pick 'em to get there. But you can see heavy liquidity down here as well. My philosophy right now, and again, everything still follows Bitcoin, but I still have Bitcoin potentially dropping here on the daily chart. I still have Bitcoin with a very strong level of support right in the range of 61,000, 61.3. There's a lot of things there. There's a pullback still from current price action of roughly 3 to 4%. So kind of using that same mindset, Ethereum could have a little bit larger of a pullback. That's where I'm kind of getting more of this range of saying 32, since there is liquidity at that level. That's still an 8% pullback from current prices, but it's manageable. Coming down all the way to 29, we're talking about a 16% pullback on Ethereum. That happens, in my opinion, if Bitcoin does not hold 61, and all of a sudden we're talking about 55,000. If Bitcoin pulls back upwards of 12%, then Ethereum easily could do 16. But I don't foresee that happening. That's not what I'm predicting at this point. I'm looking for more purchasing power for Ethereum around 3,200, for Bitcoin around 61.3, 61.5 area. And so until things change and give me a different reason to think differently, that is kind of my assumption for both of those assets at this point.
Okay, with that being the case, especially around Bitcoin and Ethereum, trading on, a Bitcoin ETH chart, would you say that Bitcoin is still leading the market, leading ETH out into the market, or do you feel like ETH maybe is now in its own range of growth?
Yeah, I mean, so traditionally, it's not yet time for the full-blown ETH cycle. If I do show you the ETH over Bitcoin chart, in the last week, Ethereum is leading. But from a zoomed-out perspective, here, let me get rid of a couple of these things. It's been a minute since I looked at this chart. Okay, come on now, chart. Get with the program. There we go. We're still not in a bullish trend here, right? So we might be bullish from this bottom back here on May 18th, and we might even be bullish in the last 7 days, but you zoom back out to September of 2022, we're still setting lower highs and lower lows. I think in reality, what we're going to want to see is Ethereum over Bitcoin probably get above this 0.061 level. Then we can have a discussion about Ethereum leading the charge. I don't think that happens, however, until closer to August or September. We could even keep going bullish, and you can make the statement, hey, guys, Ethereum's doing better than Bitcoin even right now. But to kind of have a very good confirmation and feel strongly that we're no longer in the Bitcoin part of the cycle, but we're in the Ethereum leading cycle, I would say let's get this pairing above 0.06 and let's set a higher high rather than still being in a lower high trend.
So essentially, you've got the two assets trading very closely in terms of likelihood, in terms of performance going into that. All right, well, I can accept that in looking at it. I'm in agreement, I think, with ETH on a long-term play, and definitely in terms of market corrections as we start to see that. I'm a little interested in to see how much of market correction we will see on Bitcoin as the market starts to explore ETH and all the things that we kind of mentioned there with Hogan's tweet. So a lot happening. Another thing coming in, of course, stablecoins and Mika getting ready to jump loose here in the EU. Let me zoom in on that. Everybody's getting ready to start seeing stablecoins in action in a legal way, which means we could see an explosion around USDC. Obviously, that would change things quite a bit because that's an ERC20 token.
Right.
So there's an opportunity there, I think, again, just for more position on that. That rolling into also Solana, because this is kind of the question I have next is, now let's play ETH versus Solana, because we've looked at kind of the scenario. You've got Solana now potentially getting an ETF coming in, and of course Coinbase would be, this coming from 3iQ Corp. But the point being is that we could see something happen like this with Solana. Is Solana in a position right now, if you were trying to go that same investment strategy with an ETH versus Solana on that same 100K, 10K, or 1K, what route would you take right now based on Solana's chart?
Yeah, so here's what I will say before I go to the chart. I feel confident in saying that Ethereum will be a better investment than Bitcoin. When it comes to will Solana be a better investment in Ethereum, while I am still confident, I'm less confident in that statement than I am in Ethereum beating out Bitcoin, just because I see Bitcoin and Ethereum as your safest, least valuable, but safest choices for investing. Solana's got such a great upside, but there are scenarios that could play out in the next, again, 14, 15 months that for some reason its bullishness gets kind of crushed. But I don't perceive that happening. In fact, what I'm looking at right now, it's another one of these. I'm on the weekly chart right now. So when you see each candle, we're representing 7 days. For the last month and some change, Solana has been falling compared to Ethereum. But there's some major support happening right now. Most of this is actually due to a lot of the meme coins that kind of boosted Solana so heavily during this time period. They're cooling off, so Solana's cooling off a little bit, but we're getting very close to a level on the weekly chart of very strong support in both this smart trail and a large order block. On the daily chart, the sell orders that we were under have hit their most aggressive take profit. And when you start to look at oscillators, I'm not saying we're about to reverse today. In fact, we could keep in this level for maybe the next couple of weeks, but a lot of signs of oversold Solana over Ethereum. And I've said this before. I was actually having a conversation with somebody the other day about Solana's future. And they were saying, oh, yeah, the meme season's over. Solana's done. I'm like, is that where we got to, where we thought Solana was only about meme coins?
Yeah.
Because that's not how I've perceived it. That was one added benefit of Solana.
Yeah.
But you can have a lot of problems. There's still, Solana, I would still say at this point, is the easiest, fastest, and most admissible blockchain to build something on. So a lot of institutions, maybe not the high Microsofts and Apples and those, but a lot of companies and businesses worldwide will choose Solana. I still see Solana jumping over $1,000, potentially going up towards 1,600. So we're talking about more like, instead of Ethereum's 5 to 7x, I think there's a good chance at closer to a 10 to 12x, 12 to 15x left in Solana if things play out correctly.
Well, that's a big one. Of course, Solana been very bullish up to this point. You know, obviously we'll see things start to play out this summer, and as they go into, you know, their conference season that starts to reveal a lot of new projects, especially if we get some regulation clarity. A couple other things that are happening. I wanted to kind of play this in, and this is just showing ETFs and, you know, their outflows, but also the potential of these outflows may be going somewhere. If you think about where could an outflow from Bitcoin be going, if you think about institutional capital, I want to play a clip because maybe, just maybe, things are flowing into things like NVIDIA. Take a look at this.
Got it.
And they want to put it in the riskiest. So when you read risky for this group, is that NVIDIA or is that someplace else?
Well, we asked them, you know, what areas of the stock market do you think are in bubbles right now? And AI stocks and tech stocks they think are in bubbles. So I would consider that a little bit risky. When you look at valuations, you can't ignore the fact that they're pretty high. It's a little bit risky. These are not necessarily GameStop buyers and AMC buyers. These investors buy big stocks. They've held on to them for a long time. NVIDIA, Apple, Microsoft. We asked them the stocks you would buy and hold for the next decade. NVIDIA, Apple, Microsoft.
All right, so that being the case, maybe is the reason that we haven't seen Bitcoin really starting to move up with this institutional capital saying, hey, listen, we're going to pull some off the table. We're going to revert into something like an NVIDIA move, which is an AI play. Do you think there's any potential for NVIDIA's chart to continue to look so positive going forward?
Yeah, I mean, NVIDIA's chart sitting at an all-time high currently is going to give, that's why when people talk about bubbles, I'll go and pull that up. When people talk about bubbles, yeah, anytime you get into price discovery mode and you're sitting at a level you've never seen before, there's always going to be the naysayers that say, hey, this time to correct. But we've seen NVIDIA. I mean, NVIDIA was supposed to correct for a long, long time. In fact, even right in here around 2021, 67%. That's really not even as bad as the majority of crypto. That was actually a less pullback than even Bitcoin. I actually have a target for NVIDIA still climbing higher, potentially ranging up here closer to 353 to 663. Why? Because AI has always been something that the world's been interested in. Everyone probably grew up watching movies about robots taking over the world. But for the first time in really all of history, the last, I'd say 3 to 5 years, AI is taking a form that we only dreamed in the past of actually being possible.
Right.
So you can try to fade, you can try to sell against it, but the AI, we're not even close to scratching the surface of what AI is actually capable of doing. We're just getting started. Well, and NVIDIA is one I'm just not in anywhere close to a situation of betting against until I see a much weaker economy and maybe saying, hey, even, I mean, it's one of these things, Paul, like even when the economy goes weak, guess what people and businesses are going to look for because it's too expensive to hire people? Exactly. How can I get AI to keep doing this? So I'm not saying there'll be no pullbacks whatsoever, but don't be surprised if we don't see a prolonged bear market for NVIDIA and AI stocks for a long time.
Which means that I would agree with that to a certain extent. Obviously, we've seen, cycles like this happen with the birth of the internet and obviously the growth that we saw within that and all the technologies that got a chance to stack on top of that, mobile, social, and even blockchain. Let's move over to blockchain, and I want to hit this last token with you, and that is Render, because that's going to be the equivalent in term, whether you think near protocol or you like Render, from a standpoint of cloud compute, possibly AI GPU plays on this. Render, what is your position on Render? Because it's been a little bit wobbly in terms of current price. Where do you like this one?
Yeah, it's not been performing well here more recently. Anyone who's looking at the chart like this is probably getting a little tired of Render. They probably are tired of people promoting it and talking about how great it's going to be. I feel it. I see it every single day. But I always tell people, before you judge something too harshly, zoom out. Just look at how things have performed in the history. And this is a very explosive chart. And then you look at things where we did set a lower high right here, but we've set a lot of support. If I zoom back in here, a lot of support. The bull's in a zone between the prices of roughly 696 down here, I would say even to about 647. Very strong level of support. Of course, right now, I think that Render could come back down into this area as well. But this is what we would call in TA, we're creating a nice, strong shelf. And right now, as long as there's not a bullish catalyst to send prices higher, whales and long-term holders are using every excuse in the book to accumulate as much as they can right here at $6.70 area because they know the long-term value. Don't be surprised, like the rest of the market, if we have a couple more days of bearish pressure, maybe a week or a little bit longer than that. But to say that the bull market is over, you're not taking into account all of the momentum that has already come into the space, despite the fact that we're not even close to really seeing what Render's true potential is. And the reason I'm big on Render over some others, I still like Near, I still like what ASI is about to be, but Render has a special relationship with NVIDIA. NVIDIA has a relationship with a lot of different coins, but it seems like NVIDIA talks about Render quite frequently. So Render's not just going to be a great AI play for crypto holders, but institutional investors or traditional stockholders who are looking to dabble in AI are going to constantly hear Render. And that's a big reason to stay long-term bullish on it, even if the price in the last couple of months has been frustrating.
Well, and I think the thing that you have to consider here is if you are a believer in cloud compute and the potential here for AI, then, and even if you're looking at diversification, whether you like Near Protocol or you do want to jump on Render, I think the key here is that this is just the beginning. We're going to see so much in terms of innovation, and both these projects are in the right spot at the right time. So all that being very good. Hey, Tim, if anybody wants to catch Tim, of course, catch him in over at Investing Bros on his YouTube channel. We'll make sure to leave a link down in the description. But thanks again for stopping in today. We appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Paul.
You bet. All right. So guys, we'll get into a couple other tokens. One other thing I wanted to hit on, and we did a video on this with Avalanche yesterday, And one of the things is this topic right here. KONAMI is now building a blockchain. So Avalanche starting to take, I think, some very interesting steps in terms of partnerships and where these subnets are going. And John Wu, there was a video clip that we put into that video. If you had a chance to go back and watch it, go check it out. But there's a clip towards the end of John Wu talking about, this subnet season. There's a lot of opportunity, I think, in terms of timing with Avalanche. So be on the lookout for Avalanche a little bit closer to the fall. That's going to be what we are going to try to get John Wu to talk about this a little bit in the next few weeks. So be on the lookout for that interview because it is coming. Other news out there, of course, is Polygon and Ronin. Ronin Network now jumping in on Polygon, which this could be interesting on how this partnership might line up. And also two powerhouses from the previous bull run. So this also could play into some very interesting things. Others that we're watching right now, here, of course, is Binance adding USDT on TON. And TON, of course, is the big one that we've talked a little bit about here on the show. Actually, I think we did an analysis last week with Tim. But this, of course, gets into some pretty interesting chain metrics now, pretty much showing a ridiculous growth. But the transaction volume has gone from 5 to 10 billion. So holder account also climbing from like 2.9 million to 32 million in a year. So 10x. That's a pretty big statement. Without that, and then of course you've got some other things happening out there in the EU, and that of course is exchanges like Uphold. Guess what they're doing? They're delisting some of those tokens or some of the stablecoins and moving into, guess what? USDC, the Euro stablecoin, and then even PayPal's stablecoin, PYUSD. So be on the lookout for that. Those are some things that we'll continue to track on you guys in terms of additional videos. We've got some big interviews coming up next week and the following. So be on the lookout for those. If you're not in the Diamond Circle, make sure and get in right now. All you have to do is click the link down below. It'll get you into the Diamond Circle. We got a lot of things happening over there, including some really cool airdrops available to our members. So check that out. Just click the airdrop thing, drop your wallets in there. We've got Base or an ETH wallet and a Solana wallet. Either one will work. And you'll be part of that when we do our airdrop snapshots. And of course, if you're not following me on X, do that. It's just @PaulBaron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.